All right, friends, back at you, the Blessed Family. Special guest. It's always the best when we have Mrs. Amy Dodd with us, and she is here. Today we're going to be talking about breaking down probably our biggest hit as far as books we've written, which is the Scroll Saga. It is Christian Allegory. So we're going to break down that allegory a little bit and also review or try to answer a lot of questions that people ask. Yep. People have questions about the saga.
That's it.
So Mrs. Dodd has the questions. She's going to do the asking, and we're going to have fun answering.
Okay, so let's do this. One of the first questions is, how did you get the idea?
How did I get the idea for the Scroll Saga? Well, at the time, I was pastoring a beautiful church that met in our home, and I was looking for an analogy of what the church is supposed to be. And I was like, we're supposed to be training as a church. I mean, yes, we worship God, but we're supposed to be training and going out and killing sin and taking dominion. And so I said, well, it's kind of like a castle, and you come in, you train, and there's dragons. And my buddy Casey said, you should write that. So in honor of him, the two main characters are Caleb and Samuel, because those are his boys' names. Did you know that? That's why I did Caleb and Samuel.
I think I knew that. So, Casey, I hope you're honored.
There you go, Casey.
Okay, so let's just break down what each allegory kind of represents real quick. The scroll.
Scroll is the Bible.
The castle.
Church.
The bow.
Okay, men wield the sword, women wield the bow. Bow is women's role. And the reason I went with that, I just picked two random weapons because I wanted to show distinction between men's and women's roles. And I gave the men the sword because they're supposed to be fighting in front of the
Swords
woman.
Are pretty manly, too.
Yeah, swords are manly.
Not that bows aren't.
Yeah.
Legolas is pretty manly.
That's right. and kind of women from behind.
Sure.
Giving support. So
okay, so bow is women's roles, more or less.
Bow is women's roles.
Okay, sword.
Yeah. Man's roles.
Dragons.
Sin.
The dragon breeders.
Like Karl Marx, some college professor, people who devise evil, the people who behind the scenes are ringing the people who write the entertaining shows that corrupt youth. Oh, sure. The people that have agendas. Evil people that give birth to, we are children of light, so we don't always, but we should be giving birth to light. We should bring light into this world. Well, there are people whose agenda is to bring darkness.
So would you say, like nowadays, obviously with a Christian allegory, it can morph depending on what culture is. So you could almost say it's like the woke YouTubers or TikTokers or the porn industry. It could really be anything.
Oh, yeah. All of that.
Okay.
Anything that brings darkness in the world.
Okay.
Dragon breeders.
Well, their abilities.
Ooh, abilities are spiritual gifts.
Okay. Evil writings. And we'll get more into abilities later. Okay.
Evil writings. Pornography.
And then the boxes, which don't come until the fourth book.
The boxes. Gaming.
Yeah, I
Kids
thought that
playing
one was
video
kind
games.
of funny.
So.
Okay, I'm sure there was more analogy examples, but that was all I had
Pretty
on
simple.
that list. So
you guys probably knew all that anyway.
I know. We're going to go to now more questions that people have asked us over the years. There is no mention of a son of the great king or spirit. Are you Unitarian?
Not one bit. We are passionately Trinitarian, but it's an allegory, and so you don't want to overdo it. C.S. Lewis had the wisdom to speak of Aslan, and I don't know if it was the great king over the sea or, he kind of gave reference to Aslan being the son. And in this one, I just wasn't able to break that down. Now, in the book I'm currently writing, the 5th installment, which is called The Shepherd and the Wolf, or The Wolf and the Shepherd, it is going to get into, because it's all about pastors, and so there's going to be a mention of the Trinity. But no, it's simplified, but no, we are Trinitarian.
Okay. All right. Should the reading order be changed?
Okay, so the first and second book I wrote, and I didn't know I was going to write more, there's a 19-year gap in between them. And so it's the beginning of the story, and the second book goes to the end of the world as we know it. So it's kind of the end of the story. And then the next 3 books fill in, actually any book I write from here on out has to be in between those two. So some people have said, this is bad. You need to read book 1,
and then book 3,
and then book 3, book 4, and then save book 2 for last. But I kind of like getting the bookends, and then going back. So it's kind of like Star Wars. Is it episode? It was episode 4 first, then went back. Not a big Star Wars fan, but you get it.
I know. Well,
so the answer is, it's up to you.
Yeah. whatever your preference is.
Yeah, whatever your preference is.
Okay, what is your favorite scene?
Okay, it's hard, but my favorite scene is in The Maid and the Serpent. And it's when this girl, I think her name is Ruth, she has this ability that helps people see in the spiritual realm, and she touches Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is sitting there watching a debate between Vashti, the bad girl, and Leah, the good girl. And her eyes are opened up, and in the physical realm, Vashti is this just beautiful, everyone's just oohs and ahs, and Leah's kind of plain. But then her eyes are opened up, and she sees Vashti as reprehensible, and Leah is a radiant angel of light. And I love that scene because obviously we're very passionate about sons, but we're also very passionate about daughters. And our daughters have been duped in this age more than any other, thinking that beauty is just external and not recognizing 1 Peter chapter 3 that what makes women beautiful is what's on the inside. Mm-hmm. So that's my favorite scene.
If you're listening or watching at this point and you haven't actually read the books and wondering what they're about and really confused, it's basically Christian allegory on women's roles, men's roles, purity, modesty,
family, the church.
Yeah. Anyway, a bunch of different stuff.
Defeating sin.
Recommend them.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Okay. Here we go. This one's a longer one. Maiden and the Serpent has more about marriage than singleness for women. We wanted a book to express women's roles in marriage. Oh, never mind. That's the answer.
What was the question?
Well, I don't know. You just had Maiden and the Serpent has more about marriage than singleness for women. I'm going to actually scroll down because I think I made it a question somewhere else.
Okay, so there was a review online of The Maid and the Serpent, and it was by this very gracious woman. She liked all the scroll books, but she liked that one the least because she is married, but I'm not sure if she can have kids. So she thought it kind of, what she heard from The Maid and the Serpent was that you're only a valuable woman if you're married with kids, and that is definitely not the message of the book. And I thought I put some kind of disclaimer in there.
So when Jared had me read it, so he has me read all the books just for story. I'm not a good editor grammatically, but I'll edit it for the storyline because I'm pretty straightforward when I tell him I'm bored or not bored.
She doesn't mind hurting my feelings.
Well, anyway, so when I was reading through Maiden and the Serpent the very first time, well, actually, I had him rewrite 50% of the book. I came back to him and I'm like, 50% of this needs to be rewritten, and he rewrote it, and it was amazing. But we tried to make sure to put elements in there that did reference singleness, because what we wanted with Maiden and the Serpent was kind of like a marriage book, like maybe I'm trying to think of some names of actual marriage books.
Created to be His Helpmate.
Yeah.
Excellent Wife.
Yeah. Excellent Wife, Created to be His Helpmate, stuff like that. But then in a novel, Christian allegory form that would be fun to read. So, I mean, we wanted to get across marriage roles. But we did try to blip in, okay, if you're not married and you don't have kids, this is what singles would do. So we did try to do that. So we tried to tailor it both ways.
Didn't do a good enough job, but just so you know, we love single women and think they have a great calling in God's kingdom.
Oh, yeah. And we put that in the book. No. But anyway. Okay, have your kids or wife helped you in the writing of this book?
Wife, absolutely. She's definitely the MVP. She's very honest, which is a good thing. And she reads me and she says, hey, this is good, this is junk, change this. And I change it, and then it turns out we think to be good. And so she's extremely helpful. By the way, all of the designs of all of our books, all of the covers, all of the interior is all Mrs. Dodd. So, and our website, anything you see in our ministry that's good is Mrs. Dodd.
Hopefully it's good.
Now, the biggest shout out to my children is Jared. When Jared was about 13, I was writing the first book, and I was like, hey, what do you think about this book? And I was giving him the idea, and he goes, Dad, you should give them superpowers. I was like, okay, sure. I can't really do that. And he goes, no, you should give them some kind of power. And it hit me. Spiritual gifts, right? Mm-hmm. Gift of teaching, gift of discernment, whatever it is. And I was like, okay, rock on. So that's how the abilities, which without the abilities, mm-hmm. I don't think it would be nearly as good of a book.
Yeah, definitely.
Like nearly as fun as a book. That just adds a lot of fun to it.
Okay, so here's actual legitimate question that we got after a family had read this book. Is it wrong for boys to shoot bows?
Yeah, I was so heartbroken when I heard that, because
know.
his family was like, hey, my 7-year-old boy won't shoot a bow. Because he says,
of the book.
Yeah, because he says, well, men wield the sword, women wield the bow. And so we gave a disclaimer in our recent book, The Warrior and the Code, that no, bows are very manly. You've got Legolas, you've got the Welch, you've got Robin Hood.
Well, even just current day, you have men shooting deer.
Yeah, you have Mike Mowry. So no, bows are great. Bows are manly. Go for it.
Well, and I think that's where if you read the books, I think that's where even adults can read too much into what Jared's saying. We got more questions than this, and I was trying to find them like through email and stuff, but there are some people who really read into things that he hadn't written. So just because Christian Allegory are hard.
Yeah, so just to make a silly point to that, it would be like someone reading Narnia and asking C.S. Lewis if he thought Jesus was a lion.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, it's allegory, so there's going to be things in here that are just fun.
Mm-hmm. Are the abilities a type of magic?
No, they're a type of spiritual gift. So magic is bad. Incantations, spells, all that kind of stuff. No, this is an example of power that comes from the Spirit of God.
Just another way of doing Christian allegory with spiritual gifts.
Yeah, with
is
fun.
What he was trying to do. Yeah. Make it fun. Okay, which character do you relate to most?
Well, I've got to pick two. Caleb, definitely, because Caleb goes into the castle thinking this is awesome, and the castle he goes into is not necessarily a great castle. It's kind of more of a typical American churchianity castle. And so his eyes start to get open to, wait a minute, why are we doing what we're doing, which is part of my story. And then also, of course, relating with David, which his book is the book I'm writing next, just from a pastor's perspective of the easy pitfalls that pastors fall into trying to please people instead of pleasing Christ.
Who is your favorite character?
Okay, I got to give categories. My favorite male character is Enoch. He's not a very popular character, but I just like Enoch. My favorite female character has to be Elizabeth. And then my favorite youth character would have to be Violet. I like Violet.
Yeah.
Violet's cool.
And then what is your favorite ability?
Goodness gracious. My favorite ability is probably Violet's. The fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let
nope,
the fire.
Sorry.
No,
honey. Sorry.
Well, maybe you should read them again.
Maybe I should read them again.
See, that actually, this is something we always tease wife and mom about, because whether it's books or movies, like she'll watch a movie and within 3 years so it's always new for her. She's kind of like the goldfish in the bowl, like, hey, this is neat, and comes back. So she can rewatch and reread, and it's always like her first time.
It is. Which maybe that's
not a good thing.
I don't know. Not a good thing. Good thing. I don't know.
It's a good benefit of a bad thing.
And then, which book is your favorite?
So I'm all about manliness, but I have such a passion for ladies and daughters that I think it's The Maid and the Serpent. Dragon and the King. When he goes underground in Dragon and the King.
I do remember that part.
I really enjoy that part. So it's a tie. Dragon and the King, Maid and the Serpent.
Okay, so something that I do remember, when he first gave me the books to read, to be like, are these even good stories? I went off into my room and I read through Castle and the Scroll, and, he'd peep his head in and be like, how is it? And I'd be like, it's fine, it's good, it's good. And then Castle and the Scroll came around and he kept
Dragon the King?
Yeah, Dragon and the King, and he kept peeping his head in, and I'd be like, it's good, it's good. And then there was one point, I'm not going to give it away for anyone who hasn't read it, but for all of you who have read Dragon and the King, at one point, I'm just bawling my eyes out, and he peeps his head in, and I was just like, you get out of here! I don't want to talk to you. But that one, the fact that he has great, I don't know, your heartstrings get attached, that was really good.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Maid and the Serpent's really good. I do remember that one being really good. Sometimes I get really confused, though, because I will read different drafts and tell him he needs to change stuff. And in Maiden and the Serpent, seriously, he rewrote 50% of the story. So sometimes I forget what was first draft and second draft. Okay, question. Have you gone back and changed anything in the books? Rewritten anything?
Yes. I went back and changed something in Dragon and the King. when I first wrote that, so I'm big on just war. I believe Christians are called to lawfully fight and, if needed, take life. Now, we aren't ever called to murder. There's a difference between murder and killing. You can learn about that in Christianity and Government. I believe it's in there. Well, it's also in The Castle or The Dragon, the King. But at the time, I was debating with a good friend of mine. We were conversing back and forth between kind of the Anabaptist view and the traditional Christian view of taking up arms. And I tried to have it between two of the characters, Caleb and Nathan. We're going back and forth. And I thought people could see which one was the right view, but then I got a couple comments of people saying, man, I really appreciate how, Christians aren't supposed to fight. And I was like, and the book.
I didn't know that.
So I was like, okay, we have to change this. And so I went back and made them both just affirm the right thing. At first I thought about, but I think you said, no, don't do it that way. But I was going to have them debate. And then Nathan end up saving the pacifist, saving.
You didn't write that? I thought you did.
No, where the pacifist then becomes a fighter by saving the life of Caleb.
You didn't do it? I thought you did do that.
No, I said that and you said, no, don't do that.
Oh, okay, because it's kind of like, who's that one famous pacifist who ended up fighting in World War II? That they made a movie about.
Sergeant York.
Yeah, Sergeant York's really good.
So we aren't pacifist. Jesus wasn't a pacifist.
I'm sure we've
got. The Bible isn't about pacifism.
Okay, stop. Next question for everyone out there. I know you're just wanting the people who've read this. Jared, do you like killing people off?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, Jared loves killing people off.
I mean, I don't enjoy it in a weird, twisted way. I mean, I don't enjoy the idea of people dying.
Well, real people.
Yeah, real people. But there's an element of, drama. And, we can't all live happily. You know what I mean?
Like, no, I get it.
It's not it's fiction, but it's not a fairy tale. And well, listen, it's supposed to be an allegory of historical Christianity. And when you look at historical Christianity, people die. Yeah. People are martyred.
Well, and it kind of, it keeps the storyline going and exciting. There were times when I was reading it through proof the story, see if the story was good, and there would be a really slow scene, and I'll be like, all right, honey, we need some expendable crewmen in here, we need to kill them off, I need people frozen, I need people, whatever, just to make whatever that...
Also, you'd say different kinds of bad guys.
Yeah.
Like, not just the same dragon. Yeah. So that's when we did spiders, scorpions, or like the snow dragons.
Yeah. If you guys would see all like the first drafts of everything, you'd probably been like, oh man, this is kind of boring. But we worked really hard to try to make it fun and exciting. All right. Last question. Mr. Dodd, are you saying all church buildings are evil?
Absolutely not. I'm really glad you asked that, because it can be perceived that way. Our issue wasn't necessarily church buildings, even though I've struggled with church buildings in the past, just to be honest. Because they can be a distraction. Sometimes they can be more important than the ministry that's supposed to happen in them. But no, church buildings, there's nothing wrong with saints meeting in buildings. It was more just kind of addressing modern churchianity.
Yeah, well, and a lot was happening at that time, too, when Jared wrote the first book. You had a huge push for the Red Letter Movement. You had a huge push for the LGBTQ, transgenderism, all of that stuff, that all of a sudden all these pastors were saying, yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's a good thing. And so we were really trying to point out all the bad stuff that's happening in churches.
Yeah. But no, there's great churches in there that meet in beautiful buildings. Praise be to God.
Yeah, so it was really, okay, this is a remnant that's following Christ, and then this is a group that isn't necessarily following Christ. But keep reading through book number 4, because if you had any doubts, book number 4
seals the deal.
Has a really cool church building in there, awesome. A group that meets in a building.
All right, so that's it.
I think that's all of them. Right. I hope you enjoyed that, and it wasn't like crazy boring.
If you have any other questions, you can shoot us an email, doddclan7@gmail.com. And love you guys very much. Praying for you. We're here for you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.